Hey there, it's Mallory here with All About Cats. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing Cat Person's meal plans and cat food subscription service. So Cat Person was launched in March of 2020, and they currently offer 19 different cat food recipes in both wet and dry varieties. You can order their foods a la carte, just ordering one at a time, picking them out in the store, and then having them shipped to you directly. Or you can set up a meal plan, which allows you to receive a customized selection of foods every 4 weeks. So in order to get the full Cat Person experience, I decided to set up a meal plan, receive a sample pack, and then report back to you on my complete experience. Before we jump into my personal experience ordering from Cat Person and managing my subscription and feeding the food to my 2 cats, let's talk about what Cat Person is offering. So unlike other companies that are offering cat food meal plans like Nom Nom, Cat Person is not a manufacturer. They don't manufacture their own foods. Instead, they work with co-packers in Thailand for wet food and the United States for dry food to manufacture their products. They do say that the foods are manufactured in facilities that also handle human food production, and in the US that they are held to the same standards that would apply to human food. They also mention that their foods are ethically and responsibly sourced. But that background is not so much an important part of the Cat Person brand. So the Cat Person experience begins on their website. They're a direct-to-consumer brand, and you're not going to find Cat Person in any other retailers at this time. From their homepage, I used their navigation menu to reach the meal plan page and then started setting things up. So right away, Cat Person started asking me about my household, asking how many cats I had, my cats' names, which types of foods my cats like to eat, which foods they don't eat. And once I'd entered that information about my cats, they started assembling what's called a sampler pack. So the sample pack allows you to see what Cat Person food is like before you start receiving those monthly deliveries. The sample pack costs $25, and it includes 2 wet foods and 1 dry food. Regardless of if your cat eats exclusively wet food or dry, it's always going to include both wet and dry food. And it also comes with some serving utensils, which is pretty cool. And then shortly after you receive your sample pack, they're going to start sending out your meal plan. Now, before you go to the checkout, you are free to customize your meal plan, so you are free to add and remove any recipes. You can completely customize your plan before you're locked into anything. And that ease of updating and adjusting your plan appears to carry over through every stage of your subscription. So I found that it was very easy to update or adjust my subscription, and then it was also very easy to cancel my subscription with the click of a button. I also noticed later on in the experience that Cat Person actually messaged me 3 days before my order was shipped out, making it easy for me to make any adjustments without being taken by surprise by a new shipment. The food was shipped out the day after I placed my order, and then 5 days later it arrived at my house. So inside of the box were the 2 boxes of wet cat food, which contained 5 containers each, and a 2-pound bag of kibble. In addition to the food, the package also contained some supplies for serving and storage. So it contained a really nice kibble scoop, and it also contained a couple of lids and spoons for easy storage and serving, which I thought was quite nice. And in addition to all of this cool stuff, part of the packaging can be turned into a cat toy. Once I had taken everything out of the box, it was time to try out the food with my cats, Wessie and Forrest. The first Cat Person product that I tried was their chicken and turkey kibble. My very first impression of the food was that it was very nicely packaged. So it's extremely easy to open up this bag, and it's also very easy to reseal, which is great to help keep the food fresh. The kibble is composed of relatively small kibble pieces mixed up with what Cat Person calls chicken chunks, and these chewy little chunks add some variety to your cat's meal. I'm not sure that my cats really appreciated the chunks, but then again, it's always hard to know. I do know, however, that they definitely seem to enjoy this kibble. Wessie is certainly more interested in wet food than dry, but Forrest in particular seemed to really enjoy this dry food. Now, nutritionally, this food is not perfect. Like all dry foods, it's a bit on the high carbohydrate side with plenty of plant ingredients, and it also just doesn't deliver the moisture that your cat requires. Now, this food is definitely higher in protein than a lot of other dry foods, and it's certainly more meat heavy than a lot of other dry foods, but it's far from the carnivore appropriate ideal. At about 32.5% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis, according to the Guaranteed Analysis, this food is quite a bit starchier than is ideal for cats. Next up, let's take a closer look at their chicken pate. So this food, like all cat person food, comes in little plastic dishes with a peel-off lid. Inside of those packages is an incredibly smooth and soft pate. Because the pate is so fine and so soft, I think that it might be a good option for some cats who are having difficulty eating or have missing teeth. But my cats didn't seem quite as impressed with it. I'm not exactly sure why, but my cats were a little bit reluctant to eat this food. They did eventually eat it, but there really wasn't a lot of excitement there. Now, nutritionally, this food looks pretty great. It's 88% chicken and chicken broth. It also contains some dried egg as a secondary protein source. The food contains some tapioca. I'm assuming that cat person is using this in lieu of guar gum and other gums that are often used as stabilizers in pate. But even though tapioca is pretty starchy itself, the food really doesn't appear to be a very high carbohydrate product. According to the Guaranteed Analysis, the food is about 60% protein, 30% fat, and 10% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis, though calculating any of this from the Guaranteed Analysis is pretty tricky and prone to inaccuracies. But overall, given what we know about these nutrients on a calorie-weighted basis and the ingredient list, it really does appear to be a pretty species-appropriate food that honors your cat's needs as an obligate carnivore. And finally, let's take a look at our third recipe, which is their shredded tuna in broth. Like the chicken recipe I mentioned a moment ago, this food comes in a little plastic dish and you have to peel off the lid to expose the food within. And it could be a little bit tricky to avoid splashing when you're opening up this container of juicy food. Compared to the chicken pate, I think that my cats like this recipe a bit more. They seem pretty excited about the shreddy, juicy consistency of this food. Nutritionally, this food also appears to be a really species-appropriate food that emphasizes fish over anything else. So the food is 95% tuna and fish broth. It also contains some tapioca as a thickener, but overall it really looks like a meat-based, species-appropriate diet for your carnivore. So when I was trying to convert the Guaranteed Analysis to dry matter nutrient values, I found that the numbers didn't quite add up, and I knew that the minimums and maximums listed on the Guaranteed Analysis must have been pretty off. So I contacted the company, and while they were not able to provide a typical nutrient analysis at this time, they did give me a chart of these nutrients as a percentage of calories. According to the company, this food is 55% calories from protein, 45% calories from fat, and 10% calories from carbohydrates. It overall really does look like a species-appropriate meat-based food that honors your cat's needs as a carnivore. So for food that is just a little bit better than average, I found that cat person food is pretty expensive. So each cup of cat person wet food costs $1.45. And if you have a typical 10-pound cat who eats around 200 calories per day, you're going to need to feed him about 3 cups of food each day. So that's going to add up to around $4.35 each day, right? Which is quite a bit more expensive than a lot of other comparable wet foods. For a food that has nothing particularly exciting setting it apart from the rest, it is not custom portioned, it's not human grade, and nutritionally it's similar to a lot of other foods in the sort of premium department at your pet specialty store, I'm not sure that that price is justified. It's a decent food, but it probably doesn't need to cost as much as it does. Now, cat person kibble is a little bit of a different story. So at 34 cents per ounce, this food is probably going to cost you around 70 cents per day. So I would say that while their wet food is definitely a bit overpriced, their dry food is pretty reasonably priced. Maybe a little bit more expensive than other comparable foods, but overall pretty reasonable. Now, Cat Person does add a bit of value to the experience. I did receive a really nice kibble scoop. I got some cool lids for those cups, and I got some nice little spoons. But all in all, I'm not exactly sure that Cat Person is adding quite enough value to justify that added cost. Another thing that might make Cat Person a bit of a harder sell is its newness. So at the time I did this review, Cat Person was just about a month old, and there really are not currently a lot of customer reviews out there, and so you don't really get that security of knowing that a lot of people have gone before you and enjoyed the food, and it just doesn't have that reputation. So overall, Cat Person is pretty good. Their food is nutritionally a little bit superior to a lot of the other products on the market, and if you opt for their wet food, it's pretty outstanding nutritionally in terms of a species-appropriate macronutrient distribution. Their food comes in a fun package. They're definitely geared towards a certain type of consumer, and when you order your sample box, you get some cool serving utensils and a fun toy for your cat. While Cat Person did not follow up on my email when I messaged them as a blogger reviewing their product, they were quite responsive when I did not mention that I was reviewing it and seemed to offer pretty good customer service. So even though there haven't been a ton of reviews of Cat Person yet, and we really don't exactly know how this company is going to look a few years down the road, it appears to be a pretty good option. So if you're interested in learning more about Cat Person or even trying it for yourself, check out the description. There will be a link to the Cat Person website. And remember that if you're not happy with Cat Person within the first 30 days after you order it, they'll give you a full refund. We'll also be publishing a complete written version of this review, and that will be linked in the description as well. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it helped you to get a better understanding of what Cat Person has on offer and helped you to decide whether or not this is going to be a good option for you and your cat. If you've already tried Cat Person, let us know in the comments. I would love to hear about your experience. Thanks again for watching. Bye.